out on any part of this conversation, you can go on YouTube and just keep your eye on it. It'll be uploaded during the week. Or also on Instagram as SDA Advertise, SDA_advertise. That is the parent group or mother group, that's 230 Conversations. This is where we post all the upcoming programs, all the lineups and dates. And also, if you've got a program coming up in your local church or you're a small business, you can reach out to SDA Advertise and they will post your stuff on the page as well. Also on Facebook is 230 Conversations. This is where we live stream all the conversations that happen here. Sometimes the platform gets full, so you can always catch the conversation on Facebook. And lastly, we're also on TikTok as 230 Conversations. Please, so do go on ahead and follow, share, subscribe. You know the works, all the nice things. Please do that. So today we have Mr. O Chakarisa, who is taking us through the topic Entrepreneurship, the Practical Guide. I want you to take a moment and Google Mr. He'll formally introduce himself, but in the meantime, I want you to go and Google Mr. Chakarisa to see what a powerhouse we have in the house today. Next week, on the 14th of May, there's a typo there. On the 14th of May, we have Mr. Oliver Masu taking us through the topic Tithe and Offering, Me, the Church, and Money. Is that tithe supposed to go to the local church or to the local conference? We will find out on the 14th of May. So the month of May is the month of money. We'll be speaking about money, and I've already mentioned the first two topics. And then on the 21st of May, we'll have Black Poverty, a personal experience. And on the 28th of May, we have Money and its classes. How broke are you not? One thing about 230 Conversations, they'll keep us coming back with their interesting topics. And then in June, we're looking at the Christian experience. On the 4th of June, we're under the topic Worshipping in Pain, and it's giving job vibes there. On the 11th of June, we have Faith, the Burden of Believing. On the 18th of June, we have What to Wear, the Voice to the Dress. I think it's hinting on modesty. On the 25th of June, we have Generational Curses, the Past in the Present. June is deep. June is quite deep. And lastly, for our airtime contributions, we've got an airtime fund that has been going on for as long as I think 230 Conversations has been alive. So this is a fund that we use to sponsor and help those who want to be part of the conversation, but do not have the means to do so. So if you do have some extra means, please do reach out to Umtandazo or Ashley. Their numbers are on the screen. Please do reach out to them and do contribute. And if you are that someone who may be struggling with data, you really want to be part of the conversation, but you do not have the means, please do reach out to them. Do not be shy. Do not be ashamed. It will not be announced anyway. And if you've got friends or family members that you also think will benefit from this, but they struggle with access to data, please do reach out to Ashley. And so going on to today, Mr. O Chakarisa, are you with us now?
Yes, I've been with you all along. I'm still
right. Perfect. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Can we just, let me share my screen and then you can switch on your camera so we can see you. Perfect. There we have it. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us. Please do take it away.
Well, I'm not really too much of a young person, but I think take it away means I can go ahead. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly what it means. Go ahead.
I think I still need to learn some of the lingo here, but I think take away means it's not take away food, but it's actually take away the presentation. Well, colleagues, good afternoon. And well, as an Adventist, obviously, happy Sabbath. And I feel humbled to have been invited by the organizers, the owners of this platform, to share on a subject that I personally have a passion on, and they've given it a title, which is the entrepreneurship, the practical guide. So in this presentation this afternoon, we are going to have it probably in the normal way that you are accustomed to. So I'm going to speak for 30 minutes uninterrupted. I hope the host has made sure that nobody can unmute themselves inadvertently or deliberately to disturb the presentation. So let's lock everybody from interruptions. So after 30 minutes, I'm advised then that there will be a session for question and answer. I want to put a disclaimer right from the onset that I'm not a guru on entrepreneurship, but I've learned one or two things that I really want to share with yourselves. Just to introduce myself, I was also asked to introduce myself, and I'll probably introduce myself in different pockets to make sure that I conclude with the introduction that has a line to do with the subject for today. So my name again is Elder O Chakarisa, and I am an Adventist. Maybe I should start that way. I'm fully employed, incidentally, talking about entrepreneurship, but I'm fully employed and I do work in one of the airlines. I won't mention names, it's still Sabbath, but I'll just say the one that always arrives on time more than everybody else. In terms of what really affects this presentation, it's my line of passion, probably my passion. Even though I've been fully employed, permanently employed for many years, for the past 23 odd years, I've always had an entrepreneurship venture going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or so on. And so I really like to always find something that I can do with my hands. And probably the presentation will indicate why that is so important to me. So I'm going to give this presentation in a form of a PowerPoint. I'll get right away in sharing this PowerPoint presentation. And I do believe that we can all see it. So the topic is correct. It's the Entrepreneurship Practical Guide. Now, I realize that some of the organizers are actually lawyers. I'm not a lawyer. So I thought maybe if I phrase my presentation in a language that they are accustomed to, they probably could hear me better. So I'm going to present 5 arguments that would constitute the Entrepreneurship Practical Guide. So the first argument is the biblical perspective. The second argument is the case for entrepreneurship. The third argument is entering entrepreneurship. So in other words, what we are going to argue in the first instance is just to show that even in the Bible, there is strong entrepreneurship spirit. And after having agreed on a spiritual foundation, then we are going to argue now the case why you and me have to be entrepreneurs. The third argument then says, after you have been convinced that you must be an entrepreneur, one way or the other, what do you do now when you have entered into the entrepreneurship space? Now, that takes us to the fourth argument, which is the joys of entrepreneurship. And because we started from a spiritual angle, we ought to end on a spiritual angle as well. So we're going to make an argument on how even in entrepreneurship, the Great Commission is still relevant. So in other words, even as we pursue success in this entrepreneurship space, we are not exempted from fulfilling the Great Commission obligation biblically. And then we're going to conclude with a few closing remarks. So this is the whole presentation. If you are busy with other things, you could leave now. We are done with the presentation. But if you want to hear more on each and every argument, then you're welcome to stay, as long as you also don't unmute yourself unnecessarily. So the first argument is the biblical entrepreneurship perspective. Now, listen to what one writer said from, not really from the Bible, but from a commentary on the Word of God itself. This is one lady, Ellen G. White. She says, remember that you will never reach a higher standard than you set yourself set. Now, if we agree then that the standard that you set, you can never surpass it. So in other words, if you want to aim low, you set a standard that you can be able to attain with little effort. Now, the writer then goes on to say, if we agree then that you can never reach a higher standard than you set yourself, then set your mark high and step by step, even though it be by painful effort, by self-denial and sacrifice, ascend the whole ladder, the whole length of the ladder of progress. In other words, once you make it your commitment that you want to go that direction, the author is saying, make sure that you go all the way. There's no half-baked measures that will be permissible. Now, listen to what the Bible then says itself. In the book of Matthew, chapter 13, verse 54 and 55. I feel like I'm going to preach now once I open the scriptures. But anyway, it's entrepreneurship today. Verse 54 says, coming to his hometown. I mean, this was after Christ had given a number of parables. He started his work, and then he went back to his hometown. He began teaching the people in their synagogue, and they were amazed. Why were they amazed? Listen to what they asked. Where did this man get this wisdom and these miraculous powers? They asked. Now, verse 55 is the crux of my argument on the biblical perspective. Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary? And then they list the brothers and so on. But the gist of the argument, colleagues, here is that verse 55, isn't this the carpenter's son? Of course, you know that there's incarnation, but the argument then is concluded in this manner. The Bible reveals the truth that Jesus was placed in an entrepreneur's home when he descended on earth to save you and me. I mean, this is quite interesting. Heaven had a huge selection of families that could have been identified as worthy enough to hold the Savior, to host the Savior. But heaven decides on a home of an entrepreneur. Now, if the Bible so much respects entrepreneurship, it's going to leave us with very little argument, which is winnable as to why we can still avoid going into this biblical imperative, if I may put it that way. Now, I want to make a case now for entrepreneurship. And as we go through this discussion, I've made fresh quotations. So you're going to get it fresh from the horse's mouth that I've crafted to support its specific arguments at given times. So case for entrepreneurship. Why should we go into entrepreneurship? Here's point number one. And this is my first quotation that I want to share with you free of charge. Now, OBC is my initial, 2022 refers to this year, and this is quotation number one. Entrepreneurship, I'm arguing, is no longer a luxury or nice to have, but has instead evolved into a fundamental necessity of life. Now, I think I shared this when I opened the presentation, that for the past 23 years of my full-time employment, though I was full-time employed, I've always had something to do with entrepreneurship activity going on consistently. Now, how did it start with me? So in sometime around 1999, when we were expecting our second child, my wife was not in a very stable job. And the employer said, oh, if you go on maternity leave, it will be unpaid leave. Now, we already had financial obligations that we needed to meet. And I said to her, I have to start something. I have to find something to replace your salary. So we opened a stationery business called Tabiso Trading. And this business was meant to buy and sell stationery. I want to confirm that it was sufficient to cover a contribution to the financial head of the family. So that's how we started, and then we never looked back from there. Now, I want to make very quickly another quotation that has been crafted for you, fresh for today. A home which is void of entrepreneurship. Now, I want to qualify this, so that's why I put in brackets. Without valid and acceptable reasons, I'm arguing that that home automatically transforms into a crime scene. I mean, you know what happens in a crime scene? The police come with a ribbon and they put it around the crime scene so that nobody who is not involved, nobody can go in and contaminate. I think the lawyers agree that I've used the right word, contaminate the crime scene. So I'm arguing that if you're living in a home where entrepreneurship is foreign, you may do well to assist the police by fetching that a police ribbon, put it around your home, and to make it easier for the arrest, I'm arguing that, and its occupants ought to present themselves to the nearest South African police service station for immediate arrest. Because I'm saying if it's a crime scene, there must be those who have committed this crime, and law suggests that they present themselves for arrest. This is quite strong because I'm making a very strong point that it's no longer a luxury for one to say, what is it that I can be doing extra as a side hustle? Now, listen to what I say here. Amongst other many life lessons, COVID-19 practically demonstrated how slippery. Please take note of the words that are in bold. Amongst other many life lessons, COVID-19 practically demonstrated how slippery jobs could be and underscored the importance of entrepreneurship. Now, listen to quotation number 3. This is quotation number 3 that I will just listen to. Now, COVID-19 came with massive scale job losses at all levels, from executives to the lowest positions. I mean, there was unprecedented salary cuts, and in some cases, employers actually withdrew their salaries across the board. Nobody was safe. Jobs were so slippery. I mean, it was really that dire that you'd really be happy to be in a job where you are on unpaid leave. Now, in my personal experience, where I work, where I'm employed in the aviation industry, you'd know that flights are grounded. I mean, from the 26th of March to the 1st of June, there were no flights, commercial flights that were permitted. I mean, salary cuts were implemented across the industry. I know this happened on the 26th of March, but I was due for a bonus in 2 weeks' time, sometime in the first or second week in April. And we had budgeted for this bonus and probably half spent it. We had to go through the trauma of unbudgeting a bonus that was guaranteed, but was never to be received because of COVID-19 impacts. We had to learn to live with this new normal. So this is the uncertainty of work. COVID-19 has come up to give us a fact that has always been there. Now, the other argument I'm making why we should go into entrepreneurship emanates from the 4th commandment. Now, listen to what it says here. We are going back to the Bible. Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 to 10. It says here, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. Now, when this commandment was being given, there are certain assumptions that were being made already. I mean, the commandment makes the assumption that you are already an employer or entrepreneur, hence the appeal for your mercy to give your male or female servants the Sabbath rest. Now, you then agree that if you live a life that is contrary to the intentions of the commandment, being an employee, you'd find it very difficult to comply with this requirement, because you now have to beg your employer to be given the Sabbath rest. So I'm arguing that being an employee, which in itself is non-compliance to the commandment expectations, makes it a bit more difficult to be able to keep the Sabbath as expected in the 10 commandments, the fourth one in particular. Now, the other argument that I make in the case for entrepreneurship, I quote it in this newly created quotation number 4. The traditional obsession of making employment the ultimate economic arrival point lacks relevance in our times and ought to be thrown away in the dustbins of history. I mean, this is quite strong. I'm saying when you were growing up, you were going to school so that you could be employed and work for somebody else. Once you got a white collar job, I know there are blue collar jobs now, whatever color your job is, whether it's blue, red, pink, cream, whatever. This was the obsession to say, I want my child to do well at school and then they can be able to get a job. And it ended there. That's how it ended. Once you got a job, the next thing you're just waiting to go into retirement. Now, I've got a son who is about 22 years younger than me and fully employed. And I'm just telling this, I didn't tell him that I'm going to quote him, but I hope it will cause problems. But although fully employed, maybe just also another quotation that says, by beholding you become changed. Probably seeing how I've been hustling from the entrepreneurship point of view, I was quite excited when he also, from his own volition, entered into the entrepreneurship field and culminating in a TOB acquisition so that he could do plant hire. But I'm saying that mindset has to start changing with you and me and all those that will follow later. Now, those are the arguments that I'm making in terms of why we should be entering into the entrepreneurship space. Why we should actually be entrepreneurs. Now, the third argument says, once you have entered into this space, what is expected of you? What is expected of you? Now, listen to the few arguments that I make here. Many who have intentions to enter the entrepreneurship space have the following grave sickness. What is it? They simply talk and talk. They plan and keep on planning. But what they fail to do is to actually start. You know, they've spent years talking. I want to do this. I want to do this. I wish I could be doing this. They go to the drawing board, they start planning and planning and planning. I'm making the argument here that once you are convinced that you need to enter this field, start, please, without any further delay. Now listen to this quotation number 5. If you are looking for obstacles that will justify your failure to start or to enter into the entrepreneurship space, the world will gladly present you with mountain-sized obstacles. You will have enough reason why you cannot enter into entrepreneurship space. I mean, even if you go into a court of law, it's a case that I can tell you is winnable. You will have valid reasons why you cannot start being an entrepreneur. Now, I'm saying, if you want to enter now without delay. Now, once you have entered, this is one of the most critical issues that must come through. Don't accept haphazard, mediocre performance. Strive for excellence. I mean, refuse to be just a number or a statistic. You've entered into a business where there are probably maybe cleaning homes, carpets, whatever. Don't just be just a statistic. Let your performance stick out. What is it that would make somebody be attracted to your business as opposed to your many competitors? Because, by the way, you're probably going to enter into a business which people are there already. There are other entrepreneurs. And you have to fight to find your market there. Now, listen to quotation number 7. It ought to be recorded, I'm arguing, as a travesty of justice. If one leaves a previous assignment or appointment or even a job, and their absence is never felt or is in fact celebrated, you know, this puts us in another crime scene. Let's talk about jobs. You've been employed in a particular position. And when you resign in a particular position, your employer celebrates because they are saying, how could we get rid of this non-performer? And I'm saying, once you enter into the entrepreneurship space, before you start looking at profits, revenue, and whatever, commit yourself to excelling in whatever you are doing. I mean, somebody once said, if your job is to clean the floor, and when you have held that broom and you're cleaning that floor, if the broom and the floor could talk, they should be able to protest if anybody wants to use them or clean them in the next day. Because they should say, the way that you have been cleaned now, we've been cleaned as if our whole life depends on it, whatever your hands may find to do. I mean, this is one of my favorite texts, Ecclesiastes 6:9, verse 10. Whatever your hands may find to do it with all your might as if your whole life depends upon it. Refuse to do a task for the second time. If your mind is not on excellence, don't do it. Don't do it. If you are dressing, dress properly. If you are singing, sing properly. Don't allow yourself to be mediocre. This has been one of the downfalls of many entrepreneurs. Just striving to be there, to be one of the statistics. And we're saying, once you've entered this field, please excel. Now, it's not always roses. It's not always a bed of roses. I mean, entrepreneurship will not be a walk or a stroll in the park, unfortunately, for those with high blood pressure and BP. Probably that could be one of the justifications. Remember, in one of my quotations, when I was saying that a home which doesn't have, and which is void of entrepreneurship becomes, without valid reasons, becomes a crime scene. So if your reason, I'm making an argument. If you've got high blood pressure, and you realize that if the stresses of entrepreneurship will probably cause my blood to shoot up, maybe, I'm not saying it's correct, maybe you have an argument. But I mean, look at the other side of the coin. Your employer can actually cause you so much stress that your blood pressure can still shoot up as well. So which is a better evil? The one that you can control yourself or the one that is in the hands of somebody? Now, embrace setbacks. Expect, welcome, and overcome setbacks that will come your way. Setbacks will come. I mean, we don't have time to do this, but you could actually have done a study, a thesis on successful entrepreneurs who have failed many times before, but refused to give up. And they are now our role models because they have been able to persevere despite all these setbacks. Now, there have been different schools of thoughts. I'm also making the same argument now that once you've entered the entrepreneurship field, I know probably that it's always easier to start with one angle and then maybe you can diversify going forward. Of course, there are different schools of thoughts on diversification. These are they were argued very strongly before the pandemic. Now, listen to why I'm saying that. Now, the traditional way says, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Meaning, don't just do one thing. What happens if that industry collapses? Diversify so that you're able to anticipate activity or revenue from different streams. But even in the same business, for instance, you could actually diversify by expanding. Probably you can open other branches in other areas. Now, the counter argument, which was very strong before COVID, was saying, put all your eggs in one basket, but make sure that that's the right basket, and then watch it like a hawk. Make sure that you nest this basket, know what is happening there. Now, in COVID, for instance, if I was running an airline, even if I had one correct basket, the government said no flights. Even if I watch that airline and my eyes become red, teary, watching that airline, there will be no income because that part of the business has been closed down. But if I was running an airline and also selling sweets by the streets, and also maybe doing a hair salon or whatever, I could still be able to have some revenue filtering from other angles, even though the main one could have been affected. So COVID-19, I think, gave us a few lessons and still advocates for diversification. Now, we're still talking about us having entered the entrepreneurship space. Now, ethics, colleagues, it is very possible to run an ethical entrepreneurship venture even today. Don't be a tenderpreneur, be an entrepreneur. You can still do well without resorting to corruption. You can still do well by avoiding and resisting all temptations for giving out bribes. In the same way, you would avoid the biblical leprosy. I'm also quoting from and changing this quotation from the same writer, E.G. White. Now, even on ethics, remember, I also spoke about the Sabbath. So the Sabbath says, give your employees, male and female, Sabbath break. The same is expected on your entrepreneurship venture. It must also rest on Sabbath. It can't, you can't be a church physically and your entrepreneurship venture is running on a Sabbath. It's unethical, if I can use that word. So I'm lapping it here that venture, as well as your mind, needs to be restful. This is a lesson, so we are not really being unethical in that manner. So these are some of the tips that I thought would help us once we have entered the entrepreneurship space. Now, this takes us now to the fourth argument, which is the joys of entrepreneurship. Okay, I say that there are pains, by the way. I'm not a woman, so I know that even when you do childbirth, there are always pains associated with that. And don't blame men, this came from the Creator himself. But those pains would still be superseded by the joys of seeing this child there growing and all that. So as much as there are setbacks and pains in entrepreneurship, there are a lot of joys to celebrate. I mean, the first one, for instance, is numerous revenue streams. Now, entrepreneurship allows for more revenue streams to be added to your budget. Monthly income is guaranteed. Quantum may remain unknown, but you know that it's going to come, definitely. I mean, such a scenario, it helps in bringing a certain level of peace of mind. Now, there is also the satisfaction of knowing that this R1 has come from efforts that have been driven by my entrepreneurship activity. Now, I'm making a comparison here. You know, R1 that you are paid by your employer, that you earn, R1 that you earn through your entrepreneurship venture, I'm arguing that it's more than 1,000 rands that somebody else can pay you. I'm saying R1, the value of that, you know, if you sell tomatoes and you make a profit of R1 from your own efforts, I think the level of contentment, the level of fulfillment, I think it just shoots 1,000% fold up. Now, listen to this as well now. This is my quotation number 7. It's a Sabbath, so the quotations can't be less than 7. They must at least be 7. There could be more maybe, but I think it's 7. Now, as long as you are employed, listen to this very carefully. As long as you are employed, regardless of the job title, the proverbial X is constantly very close to your neck and could be dropped by the employer without notice. What is this proverbial neck? You know, if I'm employed by somebody, you know, the employer could just wake up one day for no reason and just dislike you. And immediately start seeking ways to get rid of you for no reason. You know, I've said in executive meetings where you listen to your colleagues, you say, I just don't like this person now. Now, HR, if I dismiss him, what happens? Okay, they'll take us to the system and say, no. But what is the compensation? Maybe 3 months salary. No, I'm going to dismiss him. What has he done? No, I just don't like his attitude. So as long as you're employed, whether you're a managing director, if this is not your business, the X, in fact, the higher the position, the bigger the X that is there. There are instances that I've witnessed where you go into the office in the morning and you see the chairperson of the board, they are there, and they've just changed locks for the CEO's office, and he has been asked, he's escorted the one who used to be employing security guards. One morning, things have just changed. The board met in the dark of the night and just made a decision that, you know what, we need a new leader. We just want to get rid of our CEO. You've got 2 years left of the contract, we'll pay you off. But now we're changing the locks. Security, escort him so that you can't take anything out of the business. So I'm saying entrepreneurship, you can't fire yourself unless you have lost your marbles. But under normal circumstances, job security is there because you actually cannot be firing yourself. Now, entrepreneurship, there is nothing as fulfilling as being able to employ your first employee. Knowing that in this country, in particular in South Africa, a single income has been known to take care of even 10 to 15 people. So just see how we have just become a responsible citizen and Christian. Hence, by pursuing your entrepreneurship venture and eventually employing someone, you will be undertaking your societal and responsible contribution of supporting and sustaining livelihoods. I mean, those who are in economics would argue that jobs are created by the industry, by entrepreneurs. A country which has vibrant entrepreneurship space industry is bound to be successful, because that's where jobs are created. Government makes the environment perfect, or the environment suitable for entrepreneurs to thrive and flourish. But the creators of employment are the entrepreneurs. Now, the other joy of entrepreneurship is that you don't wait for December for a bonus. Entrepreneurship affords you the opportunity to receive revenue heydays, even in odd months. I mean, in January. In January, when everybody is crying for a disease, your disease is actually different, because you can actually get something can just come. A heyday can come on the 17th of January, right in the middle of when nobody else has got resources by themselves. Now, by placing yourself in the entrepreneurship space, you make it possible to be a recipient of an equivalent of a bonus even in the month of January. The other argument I want to add here, which I have not captured here, is that when we also ask for God to bless us, we have to position ourselves in a manner that we receive blessings. So if I want some success to come my way, as I'm talking as an entrepreneur, I must be able to position myself so that there is a means by which that blessing could be able to be shared by me. And I'm making the argument then that entrepreneurship places you into that vital position to be able to be a recipient of that. Now, I'm concluding this discussion with my fifth argument, which I've called the Great Commission Eye. Now, listen to this. Entrepreneurship does not exempt anyone from the spiritual obligation enshrined in the Great Commission to evangelize in our respective corners. I mean, Matthew 20, verse 19 and 20 is still relevant, even to entrepreneurs. Go ye therefore, it's still relevant, even as entrepreneurs. God has positioned us in our respective stations strategically so that we can evangelize. There is nobody who has just dropped from heaven, from the sky, and just found themselves there. Look at it this way. Heaven has an interest in the salvation of everybody. Heaven uses us as those instruments to be able to reach to others, empowered by the Holy Spirit. So once you look at it from this point of view, please convince yourself that in whatever station of life you find yourself in, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are in the workplace, whether you are in the home, in your family, that location from a heaven's point of view, it's a strategic location. It's not just for you to make money, or and let me make this argument. Do you know that wherever you are employed, I'm still talking to those who are not yet converted into entrepreneurship, wherever you are employed, there are thousands who are more qualified than you, who do the job better than you, who actually be much, much better, who could actually give that company huge profits than you. But why are you there? Because you're a strategic appointment. You know, people say a BE appointment or a transformation appointment. And I'm arguing that wherever you find yourself, you are a heavenly strategically positioned appointment so that you can be able to be part and parcel of evangelizing. So the pursuit of revenue has no right to supersede our spiritual obligation. Now, listen to what that writer still says again. There is a world to be won and saved, and you are to go east and west and north and south and work intelligently for the people all about us. As we undertake this work, we shall see the salvation of God. Encouragement will come. This comes from the book Evangelism, page 62. Now, therefore, let's play our evangelism part diligently. Colleagues, in concluding, I'm saying, if you're already in the entrepreneurship space, forge ahead, set new targets, and stretch yourself. The sky is the limit. If you are not yet venturing into the entrepreneurship space, don't waste more time. Just start something and start it now. Stop planning forever. Start now. Take that bold step and you'll never regret it. May God bless us all. The presentation ends here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chakarisa. Thank you for that presentation, enlightening and enriching. Converted, I do not know if I'm a convertee yet. I think it will take a bit more. I have a few questions as well. So let us come through with our questions, with our comments. I'm sure there are a lot of entrepreneurs in our midst. So if you've got any additions, any tips that you'd like to share, I see SK has a hand already there. I'll just wait for a few more hands. Yeah, if you have pearls of wisdom, any additions to what has already been stated, please do come through. I can see the comments in the chat, people expressing their views and their excitements. Kutio, we are criminals. If you come from a family that does not uphold entrepreneurship or has not ventured entrepreneurship, you come from a family of criminals. I need to go and speak to my parents today. Let me see if there are any other hands besides SK. There's only one hand for now. SK, I will ask to unmute you and you can speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I've got just few pointers here. Well, the first one, I think I was expecting the practical guide to entrepreneurship, but so far I only got the spiritual guide on that. The reason I'm saying this is that I'm in that sphere as well. It's not easy, and it's something that you shouldn't spiritualize. Not to say put God aside, but putting all your weight, it demands all your weight, all your time. It also demands your passion. Because if you say you want to be an entrepreneur, you must do what you love the most. Otherwise, you will quit, or you'll do the bad job and you won't have clients, you know. And then the speaker says we shouldn't be tenderpreneur, we should be entrepreneur. I guess the argument is that tenderpreneur are corrupt, but hey, that's where the money is. One of the reasons people are entrepreneurs is because they want money. And when a tenderpreneur, I mean, you get a lot of money. Well, I'm not saying go for it or don't go for it, but I'm saying not all tenderpreneurship is corrupt. Sometimes you get it straight as well. And then the other thing is that it's not everyone who will be entrepreneur. There are people that I work with, and if I give them just a task that requires them to be in charge of other people, I see disaster. But if I give them a task of saying, this is the job, please do it, use your skill to do it, I find the job done perfectly. And they don't complain about the salary they get. They are happy with that. But when I say be in charge of people, don't use your skill, don't work, just be in charge of them, make sure they're doing the right thing, they will complain the whole day. And so my point is that it's not for everyone. Maybe what I can say is that do what you love the most. If you think, if you're what you love, it requires you to be employed, then go for it. But with the rate of unemployment, especially those with partners, don't all of you get, like, do not go for employment, both of you. Someone must be employed, someone must entrepreneur, so that you'll have a balance. Otherwise, you will both sink. Thank you.
Thank you, SK, for your contribution. And I think Zinka said something similar on the group when she said, let's not lie to each other. The road to entrepreneurship is tough. There are some months you'll go without making any business, rainy days. It takes 3 to 5 years for business to be fully established. Entrepreneurship is living by faith. And so I think what SK and Cynthia are saying here is that we need a bit more of the meat on the how, on the action steps for those who want to start and or for those already in the industry. So there's 3 people who have their hands raised. We've got Mantoa, Zaza, and the Van Heerdens. So in that order, Mantoa, Zaza, and the Van Heerdens. I will ask to unmute you guys. Go ahead.
Hi. Oh, okay, it's Manto here. Okay, I think my comment is actually, it's more along the lines that SK, the points that SK mentioned. I think it's all good to encourage us to be entrepreneurs, but also because I've also ventured into something as well, forced by circumstances, I've also learned that it's very, very difficult. And the question I have is where does one start? For instance, a person might say, I want to start something, I want to go into business, but I just don't even know where to start, And again, we must bear in mind that we are living in, most of us, maybe we are living in a city in Joburg, and you can't just sell anything anyhow. And also capital could be an issue, and you have to bear in mind the market and stuff like that. So with entrepreneurship, my understanding is that whatever that you venture into, it should be something that definitely would make you money, because you can't be thinking of something that you can see that this thing is not going to make me money. So my question, I think, mainly is where does one start? I think SK mentioned the issue of practicality, the practicality of being an entrepreneur. And also I am also aware, because like I said, I was also forced by circumstances after being employed for 10 years, close to 11 years. So a lot of us find ourselves now having to swim, in the sea, and we don't even know where to start. We don't even know how to swim. We are drowning. We're trying to find lifesavers there and there. We just don't know where to start. And I think that's where a lot of us actually even get discouraged, that, what, circumstances are forcing me to do this thing, but I don't even know where to start. I've been in so many workshops, and you can attend so many workshops, but sometimes you are also even hindered by money. You can see that, okay, the vision is there, maybe I do have an idea, but whatever that I'm trying to do, it requires money. So in terms of the start, how can the speaker, what can the speaker maybe say, or maybe what can be done in terms of the start for those of us who are actually trying to venture into entrepreneurship? Because really, it's not that easy. Really, some of us, we end up doing businesses that are easy, but you can see that as much as this thing is easy to do, but it's not really making a lot of money. So we're talking now, we need to talk about to come out of our box of the boxes and start thinking big. But again, thinking big, you look at the world, you're like, but I think big, yes, I can see, I can do this. Even entrepreneurship, although the speaker mentioned that it's not really advisable. Of course, I understand because of the corruption, which I also understand. But again, when you think big, you have to actually think, you also have to be realistic in terms of the capital, in terms of, the labor that you need, the people that are going to come on board and stuff like that. So my question basically is, where do you start? And I like what Esko also mentioned about, I asked a question on the chat about whether entrepreneurship it's for everyone or not. And some people were saying yes, some were saying no. And I'm of the belief that not everyone can be an entrepreneur based on what Eske already has mentioned, which I was going to mention, that really some people don't have the drive to actually start something and even finish it. But when you give them a job, when they are subordinates, they tend to excel more than when they are heads or they are the ones who are leading the thingy. As much as I acknowledge that the country is full of unemployment, we also have to acknowledge that whether we like it or not, you are just going to waste money when you actually invest money in other people's businesses, knowing that those people don't even have love for business. That one is a reality that I've seen as well. So some of us were actually doing it, and now we are developing love. Imagine if some of us are now doing this entrepreneurship, have ventured into this thing because of circumstances, and now we are learning to love it. Now imagine somebody now who's just giving maybe capital, or somebody who says, no, I want to start something without actually any pressure. I mean, we are seeing a lot of problems. It's better if someone says that, you know what, really this thing, I want to leave what I'm doing, or from finishing after my studies, I just want to start something. Maybe if it's something that drives you, or the gift, or maybe the Holy Spirit talking to you, convincing you that you need to start something, it's a different story. So yeah, maybe that one is debatable, whether we are all gifted or not. Maybe that one is debatable in terms of entrepreneurship. But my point here really is the practicality. Where does one start really in this age that we are living in? Thank you.
Thank you, Mantua. Two questions there. Where do you start in this entrepreneurship for everyone? I'll give an opportunity to Zaza and the Van Heerdens, and then hand back to Mr. Chakarisa, and then take the rest of the hands. Zaza, you can go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, guys. Okay, my name. Okay. Hi, guys. What I wanted to say, basically, USK and Ausmanta have covered it. They've covered the points, but I just want to say that, back in the days when we're growing up, an entrepreneur is someone who was successful, have a business, a posh business, we never imagined, or we never thought of the people that sell on the streets, entrepreneurs. We always imagined this word belongs to people who are doing something big, who have big businesses and all that. The myth that we that we believed in. I would like to disagree. There's a point where I think it's a quotation that he read about something like a criminal, what. I totally disagree with that, because we do not all have entrepreneurial minds. We cannot be the same. Imagine all of us, if we had to sell something and all of us we had to be bosses and stuff. I think this world will be so boring if we all had things to do for ourselves. That's why we some of us are comfortable as employees and some are comfortable as employers. So I disagree with the police crime reborn, and no, we can be comfortable, we can be fine, we can live large, we can live comfortable lives as employees. So let's not discourage each other, let's not put pressure on each other. We are okay. If being an entrepreneur is your thing, please go for it, and we will support you. If it's not, please do not lash or look down at people that are employed, because we are all destined for different things, and if we're comfortable where we are, let's stick to that. And another thing that I wanted to mention is, let me look at my points here. Okay, I think I will just write it as a comment or a question on the chat. I've lost my trail of thought.
All right, Zaza, we will wait for you to regain your train of thought, and we pray for healing for you. Can hear that you're coughing there. I hope you get well soon. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure, social media telling us that you need multiple streams of income, and you sit banging your head on the wall thinking, which other stream, where can I get another stream? But yeah, maybe the speaker can give us some light on that. Maybe there are multiple forms of entrepreneurship, because you also mentioned that when we think of entrepreneurship, we're thinking of this businessman who is serious in a blue suit. But I'm of the idea and believe that there are many forms of entrepreneurship. And I think it's Uzinhle who mentioned that entrepreneurship is about serving as well. So that's another branch that I don't think many of us have explored. I'll hand over to the Van Heerdens, and that will be the last hand for this round. I will ask to unmute you. You can speak.
Okay. Thank you so much to the speaker, and thank you. This is one of my favorite topics. I really get excited when we are talking about entrepreneurship. And I think sometimes when we think of the word entrepreneurship, I think most of us think of a huge business, a big office building, a suit and a tie, just as the host has mentioned. And for me, when I think of entrepreneurship, I think of it in more simpler terms, and especially in this economy that we are living in. Unfortunately, a lot of us are going to have to look for other forms of income besides employment. Just like as it was said in the slides, that it's no longer a luxury. Well, if it was back in the day when almost everybody could get a job, would say, well, it's a little bit far-fetched. But in the current environment that we're in, the truth is a lot of people are not going to find an employer. And so what is the alternative, right? And with entrepreneurship, it doesn't have to be this wild and crazy big idea. With COVID, I remember so many people started businesses in COVID, so many people. And I was just reading the types of businesses that people started. And especially like with hairdressers. I know a lot of hairdressers were affected by COVID and they had to shut down, etc. There's this one gentleman that I know of. He started a virtual hair salon. So when it comes to the practicality of entrepreneurship by definition, it needs a little bit of ingenuity. So it's not something that can be taught in a classroom because otherwise then that would become, that's more on the theoretical side, like business school. But entrepreneurs by definition, they are trailblazers. They start something, even things which didn't exist before. That's entrepreneurship. And usually they are not taught. They try things until something works. So this gentleman, he started a virtual hair consulting service where he would guide his clients like to color their own hair or to style their own hair in their homes while speaking to them via computer. Another person also started a babysitting service, but a virtual one again as well. So because of, so entrepreneurship rises out of crisis and when you see a gap that you can fulfill, right? And literally anything can make money. I know somebody, a lady, she covers school books for parents, parents with kids that go to school. She actually started a service of covering books and she charges for that. So people come and drop off their kids' books and she spends the whole day covering books, etc., etc. So there are a myriad of ways of making money. And the point is, the more income streams you have, the more secure you are in terms of your finances. Because one source of income is too close to zero. And personally, in my company where I work, in 2020, people were retrenched, and it was so scary because these were people that some of us never thought would ever lose their jobs. And it's like the rug was pulled under their feet. They've got kids in university, they've got houses, they've got bonds, they've got car loans. It was such a scary time. And my eyes literally were opened at that time that one income stream, guys, is too risky. You don't have to start a mega business. Sell something. Offer your skills, what you already have in your arsenal. Use that in your spare time in the evenings. Either you're going to tutor people or you are going to, like I say, sell something, but start. Because one income, once it ends and you are owing on debts and you have kids who need to eat, for me, that is a very scary reality. And it's unfortunate that now we have to be forced to go into entrepreneurship, whether we like it or not.
Nosy drops mic and walks out of the room. That is Sister Nosy, passionate about personal finance. Thank you very much. I will hand over to Mr. Chakarisa to answer I think we have 2 questions so far. Should we all be entrepreneurs, and where do you start? And I think Leander wrote a comment about where to start just before I hand over to Mr. Chakarisa. Leander says, where you start is, these days companies are looking for your network, people you know, referral-based business, a place to start. You help them sell what they are offering and they compensate you. Networking, and I think also in our Black communities, networking is an underestimated superpower. Thank you for that, Leander. Mr. Chakarisa, you can answer the questions, clarify a bit of the confusion that is there with the criminals and the like.
Look, thank you so much. I of course did the presentation in a manner that would provoke interaction, and I think it has done that very well. So, which is quite good. So don't feel apologetic to strongly come through on any aspect of the presentation. That's the whole purpose, in fact. So as the speakers were commenting, I was taking notes, and I must say the last speaker, Van Hiddens, took some of my points out of my mouth. Besides being an entrepreneur, I think she has got a skill of reading people's minds, which she could still sell. Now, look at this, colleagues. I've got a few points that I'm going to mention, and part of being a free country is that we don't have to agree. I don't have to force you to agree with my perspective. Neither should you force me to agree with your perspective. But we can just try to persuade each other. And this is probably what the kind of angle that I'll come with, just to try and persuade each other. Now, listen, there's one point I want to latch on, which Van Hiddens raised. One of my quotations, I said, and it was also quite strong. I said, if you want to look for obstacles not to enter the entrepreneurship space, you will get them. And I think I even went on to say, the arguments that you present as to why you can't enter into entrepreneurship are arguments that you'll win in court. You will convince the judge why you cannot do that. Now, there are realities of life that we need to be mindful of. Let's start with the first one, which also was raised earlier on. the country has no capacity to employ everyone. It's a fact. I mean, if you look at the unemployment in the youth today in South Africa, you are looking at the margins of about 75% young people who are not employed. What do these people do? They must wait for someone to employ them. This is practical now. This is reality. There are no jobs. What do you do? Now, if I take this further and say, I'm just going to make an assumption. You know, it becomes a bit different if I'm making an argument for how maybe one may not be suitable for entrepreneurship when I have a job. It's a different manner of arguing. I've been working, I've been retrenched, I'm probably 55, I'm not employable anymore. What do I do? Do I sit and wait so that somebody else can be able to give me jobs? I mean, the manner in which things are unraveling, it actually doesn't matter what qualifications we have. How many people have got master's degrees who are in the streets? What do you say to those people? Wait for one winter morning when your job comes knocking by your door. So the presentation may have come out from a strong point of view because that's the reality. There are no jobs. There are no jobs available. I mean, if you just go across the border, we have a country probably which has 90% unemployment. What do they do? You know, that argument, I am happy that Van Hidens raised it as well. You know, in the past, it was actually like easy for somebody to say, I'm not cut out for entrepreneurship, because you could leave one job today and tomorrow employed elsewhere. It would actually be a question of where do I want to be employed? That luxury does not exist anymore. If you read in the press, you won't be surprised to read of those that were once in top positions who have literally become bankrupt. I mean, as I argued in that presentation, your job security is probably at the mercy of your employer. The irony part of it is that you are probably employed by an entrepreneur your job is dependent upon the success of that entrepreneurship venture. When it fails, or when they don't like you for whatever reason, then your job is also on the line. So the first point I want to emphasize on is that let's actually consider the fact that the majority of the population will probably never be employed in their whole life. Are we saying to them, they must wait for somebody else to start a business, an entrepreneur, and then employ them? That's a different argument altogether. Now, of course, I think maybe the one on the crime scene may have come out too strong. I do know that when I shared these sentiments with my sister when I was about to make a similar presentation elsewhere, she also came out guns blazing to say, you can't say it's a crime scene. I know why she was saying that. She's not an entrepreneur, but I understood, and I said to her, I'm not going to reverse that statement. If it's hitting in the heart, maybe that's the intention. But I do apologize if it came out very strong. The point that statement was that condition was saying was the fact that let's move away from the traditional mindset that says my economic goal is to be employed by somebody else. Now, there were questions that came in, for instance, to say, how do you start this? What is it that you can do? And also tied to that, I think it was from the first speaker, I think it was SK. Maybe let me just touch SK's key point before I go to that one. So SK's main point was an expansion of the presentation. to give practical guidelines. And of course, I do agree that in 2.5 hours, well, not even 2.5 hours, in 45 minutes, you can just speak as much. So this can be regarded as probably one phase, one probably a icebreaker in terms of the entrepreneurship presentation. I mean, even at MBA level, it's a module on its own with all those big files, like case studies or whatever. So there is a lot that can be said, that can be taught, that can be learned, that can be shared in the field of entrepreneurship. All this presentation was meaning to do today was to put those arguments that I put in case up front, to make the argument that let's move away from our traditional thinking. Why should we be entrepreneurs? And also, when we are in there, how do we conduct ourselves, and so on and so on. I know that there are different areas that can be touched. Your issues of cash flow, your issues of marketing, and all that. Those are things that can also probably, if the owners of the platform do say that, they can be given by different people, and also that can happen. But the argument then is that the practical guide can be done, and there could be specific subjects that can be written in there. The other point which SK raised, maybe I may have been misunderstood slightly, but the matter of tenderpreneurs, I'm not saying that we should not venture into tenders, but the point that I was raising was that once we do this, I think it then touched on the slide on ethics, that let's as we enter into tenders, it is actually possible to do it ethically. And if it is not possible, then don't rather do that. Stay. You can run a clean business. That's what we were raising. That tenderpreneurship is okay, but it must be done within the confines of ethical business conduct and nothing else. Now, another point which SK raised was understanding this presentation to be spiritual and not being practical. Well, the intention was also to bring the spiritual aspect to say, even in the spiritual realm, entrepreneurship does exist. So that was also the spiritual aspect. But one of the quotations that I raised was that it's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. It of course requires dedication. Once you put your mind into it, I think one of the issues I said was, it's not a walk in the park or a stroll in the park. Definitely it's not. But of course, once you go in there, I said, accept that there will be setbacks. Those who have been successful, I made that point earlier, have failed many times. But what they did best was to refuse to give up. And it's an argument that maybe going back to the other speaker, you know, I think Vanita, yes, she said that. She made the point that during COVID-19 heydays, those who she thought would never be retrenched were retrenched. Now, here's the argument. Do you know that it becomes so emotionally difficult to try and start an entrepreneurship venture when you have been retrenched? There's also a tendency, if you want to go to the job angle, do you know that it's actually probably more easy to find a job when you're employed than when you are not employed? So the argument that comes is that consider whatever salary your employer is giving you every month as a bonus, because it has no guarantee. It can actually, as we speak this weekend now, do you know that there are employers who are actually planning retrenchment without the employees knowing? They'll get a surprise this week that they are on a list of Section 189. So we are saying, if you are in the realms of mercy, that somebody actually pays you for your services, don't bank on that permanently. It lasts as long as that notice period is that they can give you. Now, the other point then, what is it that you can start? Let me just give a simple example. So a few years ago, I think in 2010, we wanted to cut trees. We had a stand that we wanted to build on and wanted to cut trees. We got a quotation from somebody and the quotation was so huge. I said, this is totally crazy. I didn't realize that it's so expensive to cut trees. So with my son, we bought a cheap chainsaw at Builder's Warehouse for 999 rands. There were about 40 gum trees on that stand. For the following 6 Sundays, we would go and cut those trees ourselves because there was no building, there was no damage that could happen. So we could simply just go there, tie a rope, cut it at the bottom, pull it and run away as fast as you can so that the tree just doesn't fall on you, but falls on the ground. We cut those trees, 40 gum trees, huge of them, huge trees. And then we said, this is actually a business. I mean, these guys, this is what they cost. So from 2010, we got the opportunity to be able to start a tree felling business. It has been running. We can't talk much about it, but it has been running. I see somebody saying deforestation. There are trees that are dangerous that can actually kill people. So there's actually need for that. So your mind should be able to pick any opportunity. And how can you do that practically? I was just writing on my notes there. A simple test that you can do is, what services do you get from other people? What services do you get from other people? And of those services, surely, there's nothing that you can try on your own, even as a hobby. You know, good entrepreneurship projects have started as a hobby. One could start a hobby of even knitting. Then you realize that, oh, this is working. Then let me get somebody to knit while I'm at work. When I come back, I also knit. So it can just start as a hobby. And that hobby can develop into something exciting, into a business, and so on. I see Vanita saying Zaza about arrest. Please don't talk about arrest today. So I'm saying it's very easy to identify what can be started by yourself, what you can find exciting as a hobby, and start from there. Then there was the issue of saying, is money a hindrance? I think Van Heaton, we should have done this together. There are things that can be started so cheaply without, not everything has to be started so huge and so on. Things can progress as they go on. I mean, I gave an example of that kind of business that we started about more than 10 years ago. The capital injection there that was required was 900 rands to buy that chainsaw. And of course, then it generated income to be able to pay the employees and so on. But 900 rands, if I looked at it from now, 10 years down the line, I would not have thought that 900 rands would be the capital that I would require to start such a business. I'd probably look at something else. I need trucks, I need whatever. We started without even a truck. We were cutting and hiring from other people to carry. So I think where there is a will, there will always be a way. The other point that was raised, I think not everyone's an entrepreneur. We've spoken about that. What services, crime scene? I think, host, I've tried to cover as much as I can from the comments I took from my notes. I could have left something else. But as I said earlier on in my disclaimer, I'm not a guru in entrepreneurship. I'm just sharing my personal experience. And I'm sure there are many other entrepreneurs on the platform who can also feel free to share their experiences. Thank you very much.
All right. I think you have answered all the questions and addressed all the concerns. I'll take a second round of hands. Leander, I will ask to unmute you now, and then we'll have Boyce and Lloyd. And if those are just comments, we'll move on to Ntsika and Linda. So Leander.
All right, let me try and add a bit of value to the conversation from this point of view, Yogoti. I think how we view entrepreneurship, it's been covered a lot on the chat. So we see it as a big corporation, having assets, having expenses and costs. That's our view and understanding of what entrepreneurship is. And my experience in the past 4 or 5 years has taught me Uguti, with yourself as an individual, you can actually sell, make money, and leverage off a barrage of stuff. Your network, your intellectual property, your agility to dig deep and find things where people are not looking, and be the early advantage, or rather the early adopter of anything. Just when people don't see it, you see it first and you say, I see it, and I'm going to put my time, my money, and invest in it. So that when people wake up and they realize what it is, I'll be leveraging of the fact that I was first and I'm already 10 years ahead, all right? So with that being said, it looks like people in mindset, I need to purchase, have capital, buy stock, sell it. My input is you might need to rephrase the way and reframe the way you look at entrepreneurship, okay? And look at it from a point of view, Guti, companies need you, especially those that want to explode, especially even startups actually, and those who've been around for a long time. They need you and they need to leverage off your network and need to also make money off the fact that you are actually making your network available, and that way in turn, you are making money. So SK said, Guti, if I remember well, he was looking for something practical. My 2 cents on that is I extracted a lot of value from the conversation, the first part of it. From a point of view, Guti, what's practical for me, though it may sound as if it's theoretical and spiritual, sorry. What's practical for me in that regard is that with your job, all right, you are one step away from poverty. I'll emphasize it. If it's your only relied stream of income, and I got that, as practical as it sounds in my head, I got it from the conversation. There was no spirituality there. So maybe to help SK might have a need for a follow-up conversation with, okay, how can we make that practical? It means that don't look at your job alone. Find other means to make sure that you don't have only one stream of income. All right, so I just wanted to add value also on a question that was posed, which how do I find my first client? Stop selling, present value to people. Stop selling a service. Because when you come to a person and you say, I want to sell you this, that person says, what that person sees is, this person wants money out of my pocket into his. So stop selling and prevent value. Start thinking about, what am I bringing to that person? How am I adding to this person's needs? What is it that I have can simplify this person's life? So always have a regular check-in, Guti. How is what I have adding value? If it doesn't add value, you might need to relook at it and find stuff that actually adds value to people's lives. Inherently, human beings are selfish. In your mind right now, you're always thinking, what am I going to gain out of it? That's why most of the Zoom calls and the seminars and the presentation in this day and age that we're in, when you realize, Guti, those that explode the most, it's those that say to you, I'm going to teach you 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give you a skill to do 1, 2, 3, because inherently human beings are selfish. They want to ask, Guti, now that you are saying you're coming to me, what am I going to get out of it? So reframe how you look at your selling or your pitching or your presenting service or whatever. Reframe it to be, how am I adding value to this person's life? How am I improving this person's life? And you will see your clients will flock in and they will flood. You'll have so much clients that you won't even have time to attend upon each and every one of those. So to the presenter, I got some really practical steps. I also spirituality also was covered, and advice, everything was covered. So I'm happy with the presentation, and thank you for making time. But my parting shot at this point is, let's think outside of the box. Let's start thinking outside of the box. And it's right before you. It's right before you. It's not about you leaving, going for office hours, day and night, or every weekday of the week, or whatever. It's also about doing that while also leveraging off passive income opportunities that you can have access to. And last point. The last point is, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I want to start a business, and you're thinking, I think my job is taking away from me being able to optimize or give my full attention to the business, and you're thinking of quitting your job and you want to start a business, think twice before you quit that job and you start a business and actually focus on it full time. The fact that you're not able to manage a job and still have a business that runs, it means that you're not ready to go full time for that business. So that's my 2 cents. For those who are thinking, you know what, I mean, I know they are there. They are probably there. Even on Facebook, they say, as I'm 17, they're keeping me 8 to 4. I can't do anything. I can't do anything that pertains to my own work, and so on and so forth. I need to quit so I can focus on the business. My 2 cents, not advice. I don't give financial advice because I'm not qualified. My 2 cents is, if you're not able to manage those while you still have a job and have an income, while you're still where you are, you're not ready to quit that job, you're going to fail miserably. And then, having said that, if you think you're ready to quit your job, make sure that it's probably 2 or 3 times what you're earning now in reserves that you are getting passively. I don't know if I'm making sense. So if you think, I'm ready to quit job, ask yourself, okay, now that I'm earning 20,000 now, right, a month, or 40,000, am I getting a supply that gives me 3 times that passively or not? If the answer is no, you're not ready to quit your job. So what I've tried to do is, I've tried to put in perspective those who belong to the job market, which is good and well, and those who belong to the entrepreneurship market, and how these can help leverage and feed off each other, and you can make it the best of each and every one, or each and every opportunity, and thrive and become the best that you could be. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Leander, for that. Thank you, Leander, for that. Boys, I will unmute you. You can go ahead.
Hey, Kanye, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Entrepreneurship, it's something also that I'm passionate about, and I would also like to add a few sentiments in regards to what also Leander has just said. Throughout the experience that I've gained in this entrepreneurship thing is first and foremost, what I've learned is to do what you love. Is to do what you love. I think that if you venture into the sector that you love, it will be able to carry you through, because it is not an easy path. It is not an easy path. Along the way, you will face rejection. You will face bankruptcy. You will be breaking even, finding it hard even to get that first client. But if it's something that you love, if you have passion about something that you are doing, then it will keep you through the hard times. Otherwise, if you don't love what you're doing and you are in it maybe for the money only and not for the love, during those hard times, you will quit that business. But if you are in love with what you're doing, then it will keep you throughout difficult times. And to what Leander was saying, when you look basically at how you as a person, on how you are spending your money, you are spending your money on things that add value to you, or that bring a solution, or things that you need, So in this whole entrepreneurship thing, on how you start entrepreneurship, it's based on solving problems. If you focus your mind on solving problems, then you are on the right track. So find a problem and come up with a solution. When you come up with a solution, you have already placed yourself at a higher pedestal and at an advantage, because there is no industry in this world that does not have a problem. Be it hospitality, food, entertainment, whatever that you spend your money on, you are spending it because there is something that you need and someone has created a solution for it. And sometimes when you begin to say you maybe for example in the industry that I am in, someone also was asking, how do you sometimes get that first client? You want to enter into an already saturated market that it's already saturated, and you wonder sometimes, how can I be able to penetrate this market? Sometimes, let me make an example of saying, maybe is it the graphic design space of the website designing a space. When you set your mind in looking for opportunities or for adding value, as Leander say, to your prospective clients, you identify who are my clients, who are people that are most likely to buy for me. And then I look at Nozi's website and I see that Nozi is talking about finance and wants and his products to sell, but his website is substandard. Then I come up with a solution of saying, Nozi, I present to Nozi a solution to say, Nozi, in your website of talking finance with Nozi, I can be able to add an online store to your website or refurbish your website and present to him value to already that which exists and add value to what he already. If I present that value, that solution, and how I'm going to make his business better, I've already put myself at a higher advantage of gaining that client and solving a solution that maybe sometimes there are other solutions that people may think they do not exist, but when they come into the market, you realize that this is something that I needed. So it also demands creativity and all of the people that became entrepreneurs on things that were like the Facebooks and all of those things that didn't exist before, are people who realized something that does not exist and became creative and said, how can we solve this social problem that yet does not exist? And when you are marketing, you market a solution to a problem or make people identify the problem that they might need. And there is a question also of someone who also said, can everyone be an entrepreneur? I have a different mindset or a perspective when it comes to that. I think there is a difference between being self-employed and entrepreneurship. When you are self-employed, you can do things on your own. You can be a freelancer. You can be a one-man show. You can do things. If you want to say you want to do things, you want to do it a one-man. So I think anyone can be self-employed, but not everyone can be an entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship are people who build systems, who build structures and put in place that even if when you are not there, the business can run on itself without you being present. And when you get to that level, you are an entrepreneur. When you look at the list of the successful entrepreneurs, these are people who have set up systems and structures that are able to work on their own. Even if they die, the structure continues. Even if they are not present, it can, and even if they can be able to sell that business to someone else, the structure and the system continues. But if you are self-employed, when you die or when you fall sick, or when fall sick 2 weeks, there is no cash flow. Your business dies completely. 1 month you are absent, the business has died completely. So I think we need also to look at it from this angle that sometimes when we're talking about entrepreneurship, we should consider the fact that are the businesses that we are in, are we able to set up those systems that can be able to run on their own without us being there? And once you have done that, then I think you would have done a well and justice to yourself and to your family and to everyone else. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, boys. Thank you very much. And I think as Christians, we must actually relate to entrepreneurship with a different eye. And I like how a lot of speakers are coming forward with the idea that we must add value. It's not always about us benefiting. We're solving problems. We're adding value to our communities and to society. Thank you so much, boys. Thank you for adding that personal element as well. If you're an entrepreneur and you have words of encouragement or tips, please do raise your hand or drop some few words in the comment. Brother Lloyd, I don't know if you're a brother or sister. Lloyd, I will ask to unmute you and you can go ahead and speak.
Well, good afternoon. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are.
Well, all right. I just want to highlight on a point of streams of income. I just want us to get out of a comfort zone. I think that's where the presenter was taking us, that we need to come out of the comfort zone. Sometimes we are not diversifying our streams of income, because I think it's one of the key things that we need to do. Like, for example, I think we are more like putting compartments in our basket. When they say don't lay your eggs in one basket, what do I mean? You go to work, you can make muffins, you can make scones, you take them to work, then you sell, you make an additional income. But this is one thing that happens. When you lose your job, you lose that whole sector of income. But when you try to diversify, to say, if I lose my job, this income, nothing is going to affect the income, the stream of income that I have. And also there is this idea, I think most of us, I think as Blacks, I think it's more like a get rich scheme, or we can have these people that you can just get one tender. I think that's where the presenter was coming. Another point where you can just get one tender. After one tender, you are a millionaire. I think we should look at building like Rome is not built in one day. Let's build our portfolio gradually, because everything that comes easily, it also easily goes. But if we build something gradual, you find even the Bible encourages us to leave inheritance for our children. So if we are building something, let's build something, even if when you start with an additional income, you have plans of growing that additional income to something else. Then when you move to self-employed, keep on growing. Don't be satisfied with now I'm as a self-employed, I can make 30,000 a month. Get out of that comfort zone. If there is a skill that you want, YouTube is open for everyone. You can learn any skill that you want on YouTube. And also, I want to recommend the idea that our Christian values should not be separated when we run these businesses, because there is no one point where we are going to be separated with our values, because wherever we are supposed to highlight these values. Wherever business transaction that you are going, the angels, they are watching us. So whatever that we are doing, let's bring this ethical, the Christian values that we have. And also the other point that I want to highlight, that as we are entrepreneurs, self-employed, remember, as a Christian, yes, it's a good thing that you want to be employed, but you want your employer to understand you, that at one point you don't want to come to work on Sabbath. And at one point, as we are saying, as we are moving to the end of, we are going to be forced to work on Sabbath. So imagine this mind that, no, you are fully employed. You don't have any other source of income. How are you going to survive? So I think entrepreneur should be bold in our mind. Let us just get out of the comfort zone to say, no, I have this paying job, and this paying job can sustain me, my family, and my extended family. But just think of something outside the box, that even if you are earning 1 million, just get out of the comfort zone to say, no, I can still do some more. And also the idea is there are different types of entrepreneurs. You can see someone is selling magwinya, that's his sector of business. Someone, they are going to grow their business. They are going to be like KFC, they're going to be big organization, international organization. But what we only need to do, just get out of comfort zone. Even if when we read from Exodus chapter 20, the verse is assuming that you have servants, you have people that you are looking after. So biblically, it needs to take us out of the comfort zone to simply say, no, I have a stable job. Don't be comforted with having a stable job. And also, I think the other point that comes when we are tender entrepreneur, imagine there are 100 companies in South Africa and all of them are tenderpreneur. Then gradually, remember the tenders, the government has to collect tax revenue. So if everyone is now a tender entrepreneur, where is the tax going to come from? Because the government is waiting for us. But if we are entrepreneurs, we generate income, we generate export. The government also is going to benefit in where I can simply say that's my point to add on the present.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lloyd. Thank you very much for that valuable addition. Sister Linda, I'm going to unmute you and we're going to have Mercy after that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Am I fine, admin? Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can.
Good afternoon. I've got flu, so if I do cough along the way, please forgive. I've got terrible flu. I have a question and a comment. My question before I forget is that what do you do as an entrepreneur when your business has hit a plateau? Simply put, you know, when you're running a business, right? You have projected sales that and targets that you meet. So for instance, if I know that in a month I make about 12 to 15,000, right? In 2022, I can't be making the same amount in 2023, you know, for many obvious reasons. But if I realize that, in fact, the whole of 2021, I was making 15,000 maximum every month. In 2022, I am still on the 15,000. You know, you hitting every form of creativity you can think of. Your marketing, you are analyzing your environment. You know, there are no new threats. You know, competition is low, but somehow your business is on a plateau. How do you resolve that? That's my question. And then my comment goes on the whole point of entrepreneurship. Mina, my view on entrepreneurship is that we often narrow it down to very little things. You know, I say this because my husband always mentions this whole thing. In the Jewish tradition, you were considered a man who is training their child to be a thief if you don't teach them a trade or a skill. Case in point being, remember they used to go to school Nabo, but they also had things that they were able to do outside of school. Reason being, economy is something that is very crazy. You know, one moment it's good and then the next moment it's crazy. In fact, if I were to have a recommendation, I would really recommend that you guys go on YouTube, watch any documentary that you can find on the Great Depression of 1928. I think you will find it very, very helpful. Just look for any material on the Great Depression of 1928. You know, stocks were going good, everything was going great. People had their jobs at the bank, people had their, you know, they had their soft life, things were okay. And from one Thursday, the market just crashed. By Monday, it was down on the floor. You know, even businesses took a dip. You know, some businesses took a dip. Some businesses just, you know, ceased to exist altogether. And even the people that had been rich for such a long time, you know. I remember listening to a guy's story whose father was employed in a bank. I mean, those are people that earned real hard cash. These were men that went to work in suits. And he was saying that, you know, in the first months, they were okay, they were surviving. But eventually, before the end of the year, you know, now you start seeing that your revenues, your savings are you know, taking a very deep dive. And it lasted for many years. A Great Depression, it lasted for many years. And one thing that I realized in all the people who are success stories from the Great Depression is that it was people who had certain skills, certain trades. Not all of them were selling, you know. Some of them provided certain, you know, products, and there were people who were willing to buy the products. So I think also when we look at it from a point of, for example, Mina, I garden, right? I moved to the country and I started gardening, and from there, because I love healthy eating, I love flavorful food. I started making spices out of healthy natural herbs, right? So, and that was my whole point. I thought, oh, okay, yeah, Mina, I love flavorful food. So I'm gonna teach people how to make chunks without having to boil fagitamati and you think you've cooked. That's my passion. I love good food. But in the middle of all of that, as I was sharing with someone that, no, this is what I do, someone else called me and said, Sissy, how much are your cooking classes? And then I realized that actually you don't even have to stick to one thing. I mean, here I am thinking I have to do spices and sell them, but here's a person who's actually coming up with such a great idea, you know, because there are downtimes as well with selling. And that's the thing. I think most of us look at the fact that with selling, there comes a time when there's a downtime. Now, when there's a downtime with selling, I can always just stick to my classes, you know. I remember at some point I asked myself some 4 or 5 years ago, and I said, if I were to wake up one day and I'm not able to walk, what is it that I could do that could make me money? And from there, I started doing graphic designing. I'm a self-taught graphic designer, right? And at first, I wasn't really that good. It took a while, you know, to know just how to do it, how to make things that are actually appealing to the eye of the people. And my first designs were free. My friends can tell you this. I literally would design, if there's someone who has a baby shower, I would design their baby shower invite for free. Not because I undermine myself, but because I'm sharpen a skill that I know in years to come is going to help me. At this point, I do not look at designs that are going to give me a measly amount of money, because I've sharpened that skill. I've taken time, you know, to actually grow myself as a designer. And I think that's the other thing that we are so afraid of. Most of us are asking the question, is being self-employed for everyone? Is entrepreneurship? Simply because we're asking from a point of, we are not willing to put in the work. I mean, running a successful business or being a successful entrepreneur, unfortunately, it needs a level of dedication that most of us do not want to put in. And so we come up with different questions, but the real sentiment behind everything is, I'm not willing to do that. Because as an entrepreneur, you will have to give up a 40-hour work week for an 80-hour work week, sometimes for the first 2 years for half the salary that you got. But the whole point is, are you seeing the vision at the end of the tunnel? Are you seeing how big the light at the end of the tunnel is? You know, it's crazy, the world that we live in. And I think also because we're viewing this also as Christians, we're living at a time now where, I don't know if you guys believe it, but I believe it. I believe we are heading straight for the time of trouble. There's going to be a time where buying and selling, you know, is not going to be easy for those who do not want to accept the mark of the beast. All right. And so when you look at an economy like that, then it means barter trade is something that you should be able. What are you going to barter trade with your neighbor if you're not able to buy yourself? Do you understand? This is where I'm coming from, where I say selling is good, but also selling is limited. If you are not able to sell, what is it that you can do, that you can trade with your neighbor? If you're able to bake bread, and your neighbor can grow tomatoes, there you go. You're not able to sell, you're not able to buy, but you can take bread every morning to your neighbor, and you are guaranteed to your neighbor is also going to probably give you a kg of tomatoes or 2 kg of tomatoes every week. This is how I've always viewed entrepreneurship. And so I think this is where I am as a person, my own understanding. The fact that sometimes we mask our unwillingness to put in the work, in the questions, in the uncertainties. There's nothing that is certain. Unfortunately, we also sometimes treat entrepreneurship very unfairly in the sense that we want to have some sense of assurity to say, am I going to make enough? Some months you won't make money, and that's true. There are months where you won't make money. Sometimes you will go for 2 months without making the amount of money that you would want to make. But you know what? What's also true is that in the next 2 months, we could dip into a deep economic depression. All right, because the stock market is not guaranteed. We are not guaranteed anything in this life. Wouldn't you rather be not guaranteed, but in your own space, rather than at someone else's mercy, having to pay a bond, having to pay a car, and you're dependent on a particular salary that can just dip into depression? Not to undermine people that are working. Yes, even the people that are working, in fact, are very essential for our businesses. There are those people that are selling on a daily basis. They are very essential. But also in the same breath, it doesn't mean just because you are comfortable in your employment, then you do not have to learn a trade. Learning a trade is something that I have seen myself is very important. I studied animal health. It has always been my dream to be an animal doctor. But you know what happened now? A whole lot of people have gone into agriculture. They take short courses, and in this 2020, in this 2022, I think by the end of the year, being an animal doctor is going to cease from being a scarce skill, because a lot of people are going into agriculture. They are learning these things. They're taking short courses, and so they only go to the animal doctor when there's a big need. So now, who thought an animal doctor could be dispensable like that? We all did not think. I, for one, did not think being an animal doctor at some point will be looked upon as just an ordinary job, And yeah, so that's my whole take on entrepreneurship. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sister Linda. Thank you so much, highlighting the importance of having self-sustaining skills, cultivating self-sustaining skills. Thank you very much. And I hope the speaker did note your question. Let us try to maybe keep our comments short so that we can have everyone speaking and sharing their thoughts and their comments. I will take Unziga first and then Mercy, because I think Unziga has had their hand up for quite some time now. So I'll mute Unziga, and then straight after Unziga, Mercy, please do come through. Nziga, are you with us? I've asked to unmute you. I don't know. I cannot see Nziga anymore, so I will give Mercy to speak, and then when Nziga comes back, we'll give them an opportunity to speak. Mercy?
Yes, I come from a point that is echoing the sentiments of people who feel that the presentation at first was a little harsh, because I had the privilege of listening to the speaker at one time, and actually I looked at his notes. But let me tell you what I then realized, that it's a group of mixed multitudes right now. Some people like me, at that point, I was at the stage of preconception. I really I was not aware of where I was going until I listened to this. Because what it is happening, it's change. There is a theorist who talks about change. Once you start to realize that you need to change, that's when you start changing. And the mindset, what you did, the speaker man, you brought the mindset that provoked and made me really think about what's going on. I was actually contemplating on going for my DNP, a doctorate in nursing practice, And he brought into my head the fact that, you know what, you have that colonial mentalism where you want to go to school, spend money, pay the school. And when you go to school, you are going to be depriving your family of the time that they have, the stress that you have, so that you can be able to go and work for somebody at the end of the day. But you really need the money right now. You really need to make a legacy. You really need to have an inheritance for your children. And then I started thinking about it. And I realized that I have things that I have tools that I have already. Just baking cakes, small cakes, and bringing them to work. Making milk, go to a farm. Just small things started putting me on a pathway that I was like, oh, wow. Flowers, making flowers. It made me it just opened my mind. So those people who have the sentiment that they feel like he was a little harsh, I urge you to stay on the course and realize where he's trying to put you. You will realize that you will gain at the end of the day. Not everybody is going to be a big businessman, but you certainly can do something with what you have. You certainly can start without even an income. You certainly can start making, like I make sada. You guys call it papa, right? With vegetables. And I bring it to my workplace. People like, this is African. I'm like, I'm making money from it. The flowers that I started making at church, not even going to school. So really, he is trying to put you in a pathway that's going to lead you somewhere. Don't take him too hard. I really was blessed. And I'm thinking, if you sit down, go back home and realize there is something that you can do, surely the Lord will bless you. And I like that he brings up the spiritual, because I'm a spiritual person. Anything that I do, the Lord will guide. And it has to be something that I have a passion with, things that I'm already doing, not trying to get money from somewhere else. I hope you guys are going to be blessed. I pray that when you go home, you're going to sit down and really think you are in a prison, you are depriving your children, working for somebody, your job is going to work today. You're not going to leave anything for them because you work for somebody. But when you start doing business, look at his son, he's already into business already. If you're going to do something, grow vegetables in your garden, you have it in your hand. The Lord has given it to you. May the Lord bless you all.
Amen. And would like to welcome you, Mama Mercy. Elder Chakarisa said she's the elder sister. Thank you so much for joining us and for those encouraging words. We see that it runs, the passion runs in the family. I will, Antiga, I'll ask to unmute you now and you can speak.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. I'm really sorry about the cut off. Actually, what I'm going to say is not going to be long. I actually should have just typed this, but like, I'm really not good at typing. So, can you guys hear me? Oh.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, there's I'll start with a statement that says, let a businessman or woman do business in a way that will glorify their master because of their fidelity. Let them carry their religion into everything that is done and reveal to others the spirit of Christ. Now, I really like what Sister Linda said, and also what Boyce has touched on, especially the difference between self-employment as well as entrepreneurship. Now, if we actually look at the meaning, rather, of entrepreneurship, perhaps from a dictionary, we'll get that it is it's someone that actually takes a risk in the hope of making a profit. So you don't know, or you're not sure if you're going to make profit, but you take those risks hoping that you're going to make profit out of that. So for us to be actually to consider ourselves entrepreneurships, we really need to know what we need to ask the Lord to bless us or baptize us, I don't know, with fresh ideas, so that we know how to solve some of the human challenges or problems And Simcelo Thixo again to connect us to the right people for us to make that happen. That is my 2-cent addition, and I thank you.
Thank you for that, Nsika. Thank you very much. I will unmute Tracy to speak, and then we'll move on to SK and Boyce, and then hand over to the speaker to answer the question and to give a few words as well. Tracy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, everyone. So just been listening to everyone, and I was just thinking to myself, okay, well, I consider myself a part-time entrepreneur, not a full-time. As I said, I mentioned on the chat that my family, or rather my father mostly, most of my life I grew up, he was always someone who started a business, and sometimes they would fail. You know, quite a lot of them actually would fail, but he would never give up trying. He would always start something else. If this business doesn't work out, he'll start something else. Shame he tried to be employed, but it was just not his cup of tea. But he was just he is an entrepreneur at heart. So I think growing up, that gave me the looking at all those struggles, I realized, or I thought to myself, no, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to study, and after studying, I'm going to find a job and work, you know. But ever since I started working, I have started I've started thinking of, not started thinking, but I've found of ways, or I've started thinking of times to start small businesses here and there. For example, when I started working, I made a name badge for myself at work. And then one person asked me about it. And then before I knew it, I was sending name badges to the whole hospital. So after that, I was like, oh, okay, you know, this is not bad, you know. And after a while, also, I started to realize that, you know what, this one income, I think the influence of my father maybe played that impact, that, you know what, this one income is just not enough, you know. And since then, I've started like a business of my own. And yes, it's not easy. Yes, it's not always a money making thing, but it's quite valuable, and it gives you that sense of ownership, you know, something that is yours, something like I feel like it's my baby, because I put in so much effort. And yes, sometimes it's not so easy, but I'd like to also encourage another young person that just start, you know, even if you don't have the money. Yeah, because even when I started my current business, I didn't have any money actually. I just told myself, you know what, it's fine with this 300 Rand. I'm just going to register and then see how it goes. So yeah, I just hope that we can all be encouraged to venture out, to not be afraid, to try. You know, it doesn't have to try. You may fail, but you shouldn't give up. You should still try. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy, for sharing. Thank you very much. SK.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. Definitely you will fail many times, but one thing will come through. I've got two things to share here. The first one is that pleasing God doesn't mean you must always pray and always call the name of God. Also hardworking, it's pleasing to God. In fact, the commandment that we value the most as Adventists, the Sabbath commandment, it has got, I think, 2 verses that talks of 6 days what you should do. It tells us that in 6 days we must have hard labor. So that means we should work. It also says on Sabbath, your employees or your servants also must rest. It does not mean that you are not an employee yourself. You can be an employee and having other employees on your side hustle, not even the side hustle. You may have a nanny, you may have someone who helps you with garden. You may have people who helps you with maintenance of your home and stuff. So for me, when we want to uphold spirituality to the T, it simply means we must work hard regardless of wherever we are, whether you are an employee or entrepreneur. You must push, work hard. By so doing, you are pleasing God. That one. And the second point is that uh, there are three things that entrepreneurs do or use. The first one, they say call it OPT, which is other people's money or other people's time. Meaning, if you can use other people's time to make profit from that, then you are an entrepreneur. You just have to find a skill to use other people's time to make money. And also the second one is OPM, other people's money, that you go to the bank, borrow the money, go buy property, and then the property pays the bank. You didn't use your money. And from that, you're also gaining profit. And there's all other people's skills, OPS, which is you find a job, find people who are skilled to that, and then they work, they do the job, then you pay them, then you get profit, you know. So when I spoke of what I was looking at the practicality of it, I was not undermining what the speaker said. I was just looking for what we call the skills to entrepreneur, like the skills to that. But our speaker mainly focused on the spirituality and our moral guide, which is very important, because if you don't take your values, your Christian values into business, you will end up doing bad stuff or you end up being in jail. I have few friends who are now in jail because of that. So I was not undermining that. But hey, we should somehow encourage each other. Like right now, we're in this platform encouraging each other for entrepreneurial. We must also, because I see we now 49 people in the platform. All of us have got skills here. All of us have got dreams. We can share contacts. We can maybe somehow organize a day where we'll just go and meet and and start sharing what we do with others. And then the mother here said she can cook pap and sell. There is someone maybe who's in construction, the site, by lunchtime, people they go to Pick and Pay to buy food. Yet she can come at the gate and cook that pap and sell them and make money. So if we can, out of these 49 people, if we can, what do you call, what is this thing? Like if we can share contacts, somehow find ways of marketing ourselves to each other, that will be the beginning of it. Because talking and talking and talking, next year we'll be talking about the same thing again and we'll still be broke. The last thing that I can say is that entrepreneurship, it should not be something that you do because there is a lack of employment. It should not be something that you fall back to, because entrepreneurship is more difficult than being unemployed. It's even more difficult than being employed at a place that you hate or by the boss that mistreat you. So it's not something that is an easy path. So let's not think that, no, let's go for entrepreneurship, we're going to make money. Yes, if you're a hard worker, you will make money, but it's not something that you have to fall to because your employment side is not working. Thank you.
Thank you very much, SK. There's a comment on the chat that your voice blesses the brethren.
Good afternoon. My apologies. My one device died on the other side. So I had said that I'm going to hand over to Mr. Chakarisa to answer the one question that was raised by Sister Linda, asking what does one do when the business hits a plateau? So Mr. Chakarisa, please answer that and maybe a comment on what has been said shortly.
Yes, thank you so much. I must say, even before I make the comment, there's been very, very valuable comments that came through, I think from every speaker, and even the last one from SK. So I think we seem to be on the right page, on the same page in terms of the necessity of this. The question which Linda brought is it's a real question that would affect a lot of us that are entrepreneurs. What happens when the business is struggling? What happens when the business is not going well? And by the way, there's another angle that we did not pursue that shows actually statistics of startups that fail. So they are really prone to fail. There's always one kind of a measure that if you can survive for 5 years, probably you're able to go further. So the reality of actually having a entrepreneur venture struggling is real. And I've got just a few proposals on how that can be arrested, not by the police, but just to deal with the situation itself. I think, for me, the first point is putting it before the Lord in prayer. There is a comment that came from, I think it was Brother Lloyd, that there is no way that we should attempt to divorce our spirituality from any of our ventures, including our entrepreneurship ventures. So a business that is in trouble, of course, the first step in my mind would be, as much as I pray for it every day when it's not in trouble, I present it before the Lord for intervention on the specific issue that's there. But again, there have been many comments that have been coming now in terms of the mindset of the entrepreneur. Probably, I'm just suggesting to Sister Linda, it could actually be that maybe the idea that you have come up with a few years ago probably needs to evolve in one way or the other, because there's also probably a tendency that we start something and we stop continuous innovation in whatever we do. Nothing remains static. So probably a business could go into trouble just because of lack of continuous improvement, innovation. How do I do this better and improve whatever I'm doing? So probably a bit of a change of mindset is something that one wants to look at. But practically, a SWOT analysis would help. A SWOT analysis to help in that business, just actually to be able to check, what are still my strengths here? What are the weaknesses? What are other opportunities? What are the threats? What is happening with my other competitors? So a real SWOT analysis would help. And may I also suggest that it should not only be done when a business is in trouble. I mean, those who are employed, especially in corporate entities, you realize that there's always that tradition of every year or so going and looking at your business strategic plans and whatever. And that is one of the items that seem to be lacking in entrepreneurship. Just to say deliberately, I want to have a look at my business on a regular basis. Maybe let's say annually. I've done very well, everything is going well, but no, let me do a strategic plan for this business. It could be with yourself only, by the way, just to say, let me look at where I am and see where I can take this further. So that is quite something that we may need to look at, because many times entrepreneurs are so busy, the time is limited to an extent that we actually don't get time to really look at the business, not when it's in trouble, even when things are still going quite well. And when you do that, you may realize that maybe there could be areas that you can cut costs, areas that you can improve in terms of efficiency and make some savings thereon. And if it's an issue of cash flow, and if the business is also maybe has borrowed some funds, it could be time to talk to your creditors, try to make new arrangements, and so on. So there are a few steps that that one could take practically to try and rescue a business in trouble. But for me, I want to again say, we cannot ignore the spiritual aspect of this. I think the rest of the comments were just fantastic. I mean, I learned quite a lot. Also, that Kem Boy's comments were on spot on, Fanidian and the rest of them. So it's actually quite a very good platform for us to share our experiences and help each other. Thank you, host.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Chakarisa. I'll be taking the last round of hands. So if you have something burning, please raise your hand now. We will not get another opportunity. So I'll take the hands in this order. Brother Andrew Chin from Jamaica will go first. Then we'll have Umtimande, and then B Chags, and then the Van Heerdens and boys. So Andrew, Umtimande, Mr. B, the Van Heerdens, and then boys. I'll ask to unmute you in that order. I don't know if Leander is still around to help me out with unmuting the people, because I have lost. Ask to unmute. Andrew.
Hi, good.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Sabbath. I would just like to firstly extend my words of gratitude to Mr. Chakarisa. I hope I got the pronunciation correct. I got a part of his presentation, and the part that I was able to listen to, I enjoyed it. And I just want to firstly go into my question. I wanted to ask about the church and entrepreneurship support, and allow me to just unpack that a bit when I speak of church and entrepreneurship support. There's one school of thought that says that, well, the church can do more in supporting entrepreneurship ventures. The church should have an entrepreneurship fund. And there's one set of people who may say that. Then there's another set of people who will come and say, oh, well, the church's mission isn't, the church should not dilute its mission. It's to spread the free angels message and evangelism and so on, so on, so forth. So perhaps that's not necessarily a focus area of the church. How do you reconcile the two, or can they be reconciled? So that's my question for the speaker. I did mention that I would reference the need for it, re-persecution, and what I mean by that is, well, when you begin to, especially if you read The Great Controversy, you begin to appreciate the nature of persecution and the fact that, well, persecution will come in the workplace, and that, of course, gives the need for religious liberty, or that really ushers in that whole need for religious liberty. Very relevant. So, of course, the idea of being self-employed, or by supplementing your income, well, that's a beautiful idea, I think, and one that, of course, is something that we should be talking about, and I'm happy that we're talking about it also on the Sabbath, in a spiritual sense. No, yes, and I'll also wrap up by speaking about stewardship. And you know, I have a Bible. It's a stewardship study Bible, beautiful Bible. And one of the things that I really began to appreciate by just reading the notes was that throughout Scripture, you gather the thought that you appreciate stewardship, the concept of being responsible, that the money that you have, it's not yours. And when you pair that idea with the fact that when we pass on, we can't bring the money we have to the grave. We can't bring the things we would have bought, the cars, the houses, all of that jazz. We can't bring it to the grave with us. We're only here to use it and to try to multiply its good. And I think that's a beautiful idea to really pair with stewardship and entrepreneurship, because it's not, entrepreneurship isn't something to gratify self or to get rich quick in quotations, but it's rather to use their limited resources in a way that multiply its use for good and to bless and serve others. And I think that's really one thing that I gather from that Bible, or when we begin to even meditate on this whole idea of entrepreneurship. So that's my 2 cents. I'm hoping that, well, sir, you could lend your thoughts on reconciling the two viewpoints pertaining to the church and its influence or potential influence on entrepreneurship and youth development. There's so much one could say about youth development, but I'll just end right there. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew, for that question and the comment as well, and the accent for all of it. Thank you very much. Can you also try to keep our comments short as we come to the end of the program? Straight to the point and short and brief. I'll unmute Umdimande to add their contribution. Go ahead, Umdimande.
Okay. Afternoon. So what basically I wanted to say is that in the midst of us being told to, pursue entrepreneurship and, create multiple, streams of income, there's nothing wrong with that. But my problem is that in the midst of us pursuing entrepreneurship and solving problems, right? But problem I have is that in the midst of people doing that, that's not necessarily the problem here, because someone may say, okay, I can probably go to school in their late 30s and 40s, probably say I'll go to school and then get some certain skills, and then so that those skills kind of help me to get probably the way of getting more money, or probably solving whatever, maybe taking a venture to open a business. But my problem here is that at the end of the day, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to make money, which is probably why you become entrepreneurs, to make money. And in making money, right, the problem, what people kind of like need to know is that how probably you would keep that money and make that money work for you. So to tell someone to say, you could take an extra mile to create a multiple source of income, that necessarily does not solve their problem that they have, because the issue is not them in taking another source of income. It's probably they don't know how to probably handle their money, with kind of like financial literacy. So in the midst of us pursuing this, getting a source of income, opening a business, it's very important for people to learn how to probably handle that. Because at the end of the day, if you make that money as an entrepreneur, you need to know how to keep it. Because a lot of businesses that are there actually are fake, because people we have created this business do not know how to probably handle their money, which then leads to the failure of those kind of like business. So at some point, it might be very important for people to probably get literate when it basically comes to money, because one author once said, money will always, accentuates whatever pattern that you already have in your mind. So in my sense, pursuing whatever that we can pursue, it's important for us to get right the fundamentals when basically comes to something like money.
Thank you, Dimande. Is coming through with the fifth principle from the Richest Man in Babylon, where he says that learn to make your gold and your copper to work for you and to bear children. Thank you for that. Mr. B, are you with us?
Yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Right.
Yes, thank you very much for the platform. And I really enjoyed the discussions that were coming through. I'll try and be very short. First point is I appreciate the points that were raised to say that this is not easy, right? This entrepreneurship thing is not easy. So since it's not easy, it's not for lazy people. And unfortunately, a lot of people think that entrepreneurship is for making a quick buck. You know, there's an unsuccessful business person or motivational speaker who said, you know, I started my chicken business with just one feather. You know, and I think most motivational speakers, they do not tell people the truth, you know. And I think for this entrepreneurship, my perspective is it is not for everyone. It is not for lazy people, because you need to put in 110% effort in terms of what you do, you know. And people just think, no, it's yeah, you know, and people want to just start big. Unfortunately, you can't start big. The presenter also talked about a 5-year, you know, period where if you survive those 5 years, you can survive. You probably will survive. You know, the extra 5 years of your business. You know, and I think the challenge that we have for most people that are employed is that risk or putting in the extra hours. I think COVID has really taught us that, you know, in as much as you might have a good job, you're still a slave, because one day the employer can just wake up and say, I'm retrenching. When we had the hard lockdown, my employer just said, we are paying everyone 10% of what they earn, 10% of your net. And it wasn't up for discussion or anything, you know, and it made me realize that I'm actually a slave. You know, I have no control over. I can't boast around and say I'm a CFO, but I mean it was 10% cut from top to bottom, you know, including the owners of the business. The other aspect which I wanted to also highlight was okay, I'm talking from the perspective of I'm also an employee and also an entrepreneur. The other challenge that people that are employed, the challenge that they usually face is that they do not want to get their hands dirty. The speaker spoke about tree felling, that he spent 6 weeks, 6 Sundays cutting down trees. And now someone with a nice job will be thinking, how can I be cutting trees? You know, how can I, you know what I mean? How can I go and sell eggs? Someone will be like, I can't be selling eggs. Go and buy veggies from the nearest farms in the, you know, outside of Joburg. Go and buy those veggies from those farms and sell in the location. Someone will be like, no, that's too dirty for me, you know. All they are thinking of is, let me do consulting, you know, things that sound affluent. Whereas someone can actually go and buy veggies from these farms and sell in the locations and make money, or invest, like what the speaker was saying, invest in a chainsaw and start tree felling. You know, such small things. I think people like us who are employed do not want to do that dirty work of selling tomatoes or selling eggs, selling, you know, veggies. We want to think of these big things, and they become a big challenge to us. And then we look at entrepreneurship as something which is so far-fetched, and whereas we can start with the small things which will eventually grow. Unfortunately, we want quick buck because we think, okay, I mean, I'm earning a salary every month. So you want something which is double your salary. But, if starting small, eventually when you keep growing it becomes easier even then when it's now self-sustainable to leave work. Now, my last point, one thing that I also learned from the discussions was the speaker did not say, please leave your job and start entrepreneurship. The Bible says we should be as smart as the other verse. Don't just drop your job and leave, but you start with something. You start on something and build from there, and be smart about it. I believe most of us have had that experience of passing through school. You need to then strategize with the education that you have to at least map a way forward. And I appreciate the honesty in that this is not easy, So it means you honestly have to get your head straight. I think let me stop from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. B. Thank you very much for that. Boys, 30 seconds, the fun hitters, 30 seconds. Then I'll hand over to the speaker to give us the parting shots, words that we can carry into the week, into our lives with from the presentation. Boys, I've asked to unmute you. Please do go ahead and speak.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll try and be short. Mine is, I just want to hear the thoughts and the sentiments from the presenter in regards to one of my favorite quotations that Ellen White writes about. It's from the book Education. Book Education, the chapter is 17, right? It says, every human being created in the image of God is endowed with the power akin to that of the Creator, individuality to think and to do. The men and women whom this power is developed are those who bear responsibilities, who are leaders in enterprise, and who influence character. It is the work of true education to develop this power, to train young people to be thinkers and not mere reflectors of other people's thoughts. So in this quotation, there are 2 points that I want to highlight and that I want to bring to our presenter, which it mentions who are leaders in enterprise first and who influence character. In the whole aspect of entrepreneurship that we are talking about, and in regards to this quotation, how is it then that us as Adventists with this quotation, that we find it that we are not even leaders in the enterprises that we are in? Where is it that we are getting it wrong? How are we not the leaders in enterprises, in entrepreneurship spaces that we are in? Where are we getting it wrong? And the last part, it says, those who influence, you'll be able to influence character. And with that, I think an Adventist who has made it and is being interviewed, a God is good on SABC or CNN is much more powerful and evangelistic than saying it in our own pulpit and two-third conversation. If you say that being interviewed at a global stage, just to say God is powerful, you will be able to impact on the aspect of the evangelistic side that you spoke about on the last point that you raised. I'm done. Sorry.
Profound. Thank you, boys. Thank you for that. The fun hiddens, I've asked to unmute you already.
Okay, thanks. I would like to say that besides actively working for income, because actively working for income is when you are exchanging your time for money, you are hustling, you are working, you are sweating. We also need to have passive income. And passive income is when you invest so that you don't always have to work. Somebody once said that if you don't find a way to make money when you're sleeping, you're going to work until you die. So passive income is very, very important. If you cannot start a passive income source yourself, you can invest your money into passive income sources. And then another thing is, lastly, guys, mindset. A positive mindset is vital. We will never succeed in anything if we've got reasons why things will not work. So if you want excuses and doubts, you're going to find there are plenty of them, right? There are lots of excuses why things cannot work, why we will fail, why people cannot all be interpreted. We can go and list 1,001 reasons, but that will not push us in the right direction. So positivity, guys, people who actually succeed in these things are people who actually are crazy enough to believe that they can and actually work towards that thing. And lastly, children. Jewish people teach their children trades. And I think with us, let's start introducing it as a culture as well in our homes. Let's just not box children and limit them into thinking that the only way to make money is to have a job. So young kids, I've seen Jewish kids, they will go with their fathers to the shops to run the shop alongside the parent, whether they're selling clothes or selling food or whatever. And the child grows up knowing that there's another way of making money besides traditional going to look for a job, etc., etc. So that's the last thing. Let's expose the young ones who are still growing up so that they're not scared like us when they get to our age. They won't start saying, well, not everyone can be, and so forth and so forth. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your contributions, the questions. I've been edified and I think I'm converted. Thank you for sharing your personal experiences also with the journey. I think it's encouraging to see. I mean, I think Linda said she's tried about 8 businesses, you know, some of them have failed, but she keeps going strong. And I think when we approach things not from fear, but from excitement of finding out and exploring, there's a song that says, "This is my Father's world." You know, when we approach things with that mentality, I think it will make the journey worthwhile. I will ask Mr. Chakarisa to give us a few words, just 2 to 3 minutes. And then I will ask, let me just look on my participants. I'll ask Dumi to pray for us as we close. Mr. Chakarisa is still with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for the opportunity to do the closing remarks. I wanted just to say in a minute, there was a question that was raised by one of the speakers, which related to the position of the church in assisting entrepreneurs and whether this was in conflict with the gospel. And also one that spoke about the need for financial literacy so that whatever money is generated is used properly. I think it's quite important to say that the mission of the church is no ambiguity, that it is to spread the gospel. The Great Commission is quite clear. However, as we do so, I think there were some Sabbath school lessons that we did in the few years. We spoke about how does the church view its role in society? Is it a church in the community, a church with the community, a church for the community? So for us to be able to reach even those that we want to minister to, we cannot work in isolation and being insulated. So there is nothing wrong in church having programs that support entrepreneurship, that support young people to go into business, that supports different activities. In fact, the church has to be a hub of activity. One of the issues that we've been battling with at Golden Harvest was to say, we can't have such a building and being used only once during the week. It must be used every day of the week. We must find activities to make it a hive of activity. So I personally do not see anything wrong in the church assisting to empower young people that they can be, amongst other things, be effective in business. Financial literacy, I think that's the subject for another day, which we need to look at as well, but it's quite important. It's tied up to stewardship as well, and so on and so forth. The last question, which was also, I think it was raised by Boyce, is the one on the quotation, which Sister White was almost lamenting that the expectation is that every human being created in the image of God is endowed with the power akin to that of the Creator. And when I looked at this quotation, I just could not avoid taking back to the first quotation I shared as well, because it's almost the same theme that runs, where we limit our own capacity. And remember when you started, I said, remember that you will never reach a higher standard than you yourself set. Then set your mark high. So in other words, we almost undermine our capacity to be able to excel. And when we do excel, like Boyce raised, we become apologetic. When we've got a platform to be able to raise and explain our source of success, we almost shy away from it. You know, look at what happened to King, the one that got 15 years. I'm just the name that Hezekiah. You know, when people come to ask, he has an opportunity to witness. What does he say? He takes them to his bedroom, and does not mention even in one sentence the God who helped to heal him. So in a nutshell, I think this was a very fine platform to discuss matters that are so relevant today. And I think the organizers, we had the sentiments that we probably need to extend this and look at other dimensions of the entrepreneurship field. But I think we're all convinced the statements are very strong, deliberately, and I think they seem to have worked. May God bless all of us during this course of the week. Amen.
Amen. Dumi, may you please give us our closing prayer?
Evening, saints. Before I pray, I think let's close with a verse. I'll pick a verse from the Bible. James chapter 1, verse 5, it says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of a sea driven with the wind and tossed. Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, thank you once again for the opportunity you have given us. Thank you once again for everything that we have learned through your main servant, Elder Chakarisa. This evening, as we are about to close everything, may everything that we have learned stay in our minds and hearts. May you also bless Elder Chakarisa, keep on giving him the wisdom so that he encourages us as young people to grow big in every business that we are doing. Thank you, Lord, for being with us. I put everyone in this platform. May you also bless every business that they are doing. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you so much to our speaker. Thank you so much for allowing God to use you, for coming to share your wisdom and all the pearls of knowledge that you shared with us. Thank you for those who contributed, those who joined us via Facebook. Though our Facebook community was very quiet today, but that's okay. Thank you for all the comments in the group chat. Thank you, everyone, for making this possible. Please do tune in again next week when we talk about tithe, me, the church, and money. Tithe and offering with Mr. Oliver Masugu. And I hope you all have a blessed week, and I hope we all let go of the fear and just go out and try out new things. Even if it's not for money, just open a business and see where it goes. Yes, have a blessed week, everyone. I think as per norm, we usually stay for after tears. I don't know, people want to vent about. Before we do that, I'll ask Nobukosi to please stop the live stream for us if she's still around. I do not know how to do that. Nobukosi, please help me with the Facebook's live stream. And then